Hey everyone, welcome to the Cyberman Show. Today I have a special guest on my podcast, Mr. Ashish Rajan, who's famous for his good looks, his dressing sense, and his absolutely amazing podcast called the Cloud Security Podcast. Ashish, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. And I was going to say, as you kind of mentioned it as well, I want to warn people that I'm wearing an AWS reInvent hoodie for this if people actually end up watching the video. So representing AWS today because AWS Reinforce is coming up. So
No, that's fine. I follow you on LinkedIn and I listen to a podcast. I can see how amazingly well dressed you are, and we met at
I
RSA.
appreciate that.
Thanks for accepting the invite to come on the podcast.
I appreciate that.
I really want to keep it simple. The audience for my podcast is typically students or anyone who wants to get into cybersecurity. I want to keep it simple. When I started, and I'm sure when you started, there was Google was still building up. There was no one to guide people on how to get into cybersecurity. Now, with that context in place, what about you? What did you study? How did you get into cybersecurity? And why cloud security?
So I guess I was one of those nerdy kids who had friends who were nerdy as well. So started doing, I guess I wouldn't say programming, but we started ripping apart computers back when I was a kid. And I'm grateful for the fact that I was growing up around kids who had access to computers, and they would basically were encouraged by their parents to rip open the computer and say, hey, change the hard drive. Hey, look at that, build a CPU. Hey, look at build a new monitor or whatever else. And I think through osmosis, like my dad was not into tech, and I think now he probably is, but I think for me it was through exposure of people around me that made me realize, oh wait, I've got a knack for this. I probably want to do more of it. And the more we got involved into it, I decided I'm going to use my skill set to do a bachelor's in IT, then a master's in cybersecurity. The reason for switching from IT to cybersecurity was a bit more embarrassing one, I guess, because I had a Hotmail account for back then in a day when it used to be a thing, and someone, I guess someone hacked it, and it was probably as embarrassing as it sounds for a young person to tell his friends that his email account was hacked. I realized that I didn't want it to be the person that that represented me. So I started going, okay, what can I learn about cybersecurity and get better at it? So it's not just for me, but for my family, my friends, and everyone else as well.
Yeah.
Few years down the, I mean, I quite a few years down the line, I realized that my friends were just mucking around, and it was just because I was using the same password everywhere, and they kind of used this and just basically locked me out of it. But that was enough for me to be a motivator. But it took a while, as friends do. They didn't come back to me straight away. It took a while before they came back. Like, what, really? Like, that was us doing it. Well, too late now. I've already committed myself to cybersecurity, so I'm walking the path. But it's been a good one. I think I realized that there's certain kind of people who get attracted to cybersecurity. And usually you find it's the people with like this. I kind of relate to this, people who are of that nature of protection, for lack of a better word. Like, imagine a lot of people who are police officers in the army, navy, like a kind of military service. A lot of that's kind of similar kind of ethos, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect the organization from hackers. So it's very similar. So that's kind of what landed me on cybersecurity, man, after that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. You know what? I had a similar upbringing. So I had friends. I had a friend who used to run a computer center. So I grew up in Pilani. He had a computer center and a Xerox machine. And every weekend we would go and help him fix his computers. And then
yeah, well, I mean, but I don't know how. I don't know how common it was, man. Would you say like you were not like a big group? I think the people who had access to computers, at least when I was growing up, there were not that many. Because someone's like looked at this precious thing, because people are spending thousands of rupees at that point in time just to get this little box.
Yeah, absolutely. My first personal computer was during my master's. Till then I was using my dad's official computer whenever I could access to it. Or I would go to a computer center, dial up. I come from the world of internet.
Yeah, same. And I think I come from, maybe you were there as well. I think because this is like pre-internet. Like there was no internet, at least no internet in Ghaziabad where I grew up. And I would say I was already in 12th by the time internet came in or dial-up came in.
Yes, I
So
think
like,
this was, which year was this? 98? For me, it was 98 when I.
yeah, 98. I think it feels like it was 98, but yeah, man, it took a while, man. It was not like, I think as much as people are getting into AI these days,
Yeah.
and it feels like it's going really fast. I think it took a while for a lot of the things to kickstart in the beginning, like even mobile phone for that matter as well. I think I remember my dad had this really ginormous one, which was I think which one of my uncles gifted it to him. Now, like it just basically mobile phone itself is very different.
Right, right. And now, how about cloud security? Okay, before I get into cloud security, how about your general career? What have you done before getting into this podcast full time now? I believe that's
Yeah,
what you said earlier. So
yeah,
how
yeah.
has your career been?
So I guess I've done a few things in between this as well. I think I started off by working in there used to be a tech support center in Pune with Microsoft. I used to work there I think I worked there for 6 months or something. And hey, shout out to people who are in Pune, I guess,
Yeah.
because a great city as well, great food, great people. And I worked in tech support there for like 6 months after my engineering degree, as I was waiting for transitioning over to Australia for masters. And I had friends over there, so we basically it was a big hangout, but also it was great to kind of keep honing on the Microsoft skills that I had. Came over to Australia, and I think the first job that I had was it was like I won't say it was a tech support. It was more of a night support, for lack of a better word, because being students and no residency or whatever, it's not a very limited IT options you had. So I was doing that and being a bartender at the same time. But I got my breakthrough after I finished my master's as an identity and access management person. After I did my identity and access management for a couple of years, to be honest, man, I think I thought it was the most boring field possible. I was like, I didn't even know why people would spend years on this
On
when it's the
operations.
same thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess the projects would be different, I guess. So maybe that was the challenging part, and you're trying to but you're at the end of the day, you're still resolving the same problem, and 9 out of 10 times is basically making sure people get the right access everywhere. And
Yeah.
I'm oversimplifying it. I get it, but I guess I wanted more from where I was, and that's when the whole Terraform Cloud HashiCorp was coming up quite a bit. Where Vagrant was their product at that point in time, Terraform was not a thing. Vagrant was something that I started seeing a lot more of when we would go to any company to talk to do identity access management. A lot of us trying to use Vagrant to create images, and that kind of introduced me to the whole DevOps world. And I then shifted gears and joined the company where they wanted to do IAM, but they were also doing cloud security. So that was kind of like my transition over to the cloud security space. And I probably would say like one of the first few people in Australia, or first few companies in Australia to start working in the cloud space. Fun fact, like when I started in the cloud space, Australia was the only country outside of US which has the largest AWS consumption. And I don't know if it's true anymore, but we were consuming way more. I mean, I guess we were the largest consumers of AWS outside of US. So that could also be, I mean, I guess you can look at it from a perspective that we got a lot of opportunities to work with different kinds of projects, whether it was banks, your oil and gas, your petroleum. Like I think the options were like just basically coming out of the wazoo because everyone saw the power of it and everyone started adopting it. I did that for some time where I was a cloud security engineer. Then after that, I switched over to that because I wanted to understand what it is like to do automation. So started working with Vagrant, cloud security engineer, probably first one in my company. Then I grew to become a security architect. And then for security architect, I became a practice director because I started leading a practice for IAM people as well as security architecture, cloud security engineers. And towards the tail end of it, the company that I was working for, they were turning into an MSSP as well, which is like a managed service provider. So they were becoming like this, like, hey, we'll build the application for you in cloud, but we can also manage it for you as well. And they wanted to build a security operations center for it, so I became, I guess, the person who built that practice as well. And once that kind of got behind us, I was looking for my challenge, I guess, for next one. I came across a company which started talking about, hey, tech-first company, developer-first company. We're looking to expand into the Ireland, France as well, looking for a CISO, and got through the interview and got my first CISO role. I guess I was doing leadership role before that, but being a CISO is very different. So started becoming more aware of multi-cloud as I worked in that CISO role. And yeah, man, I think that was kind of like the last role before I switched gears into, did that for a few years. After that, I switched my gears to becoming a full-time cloud security podcast person, man.
Yeah. So, fun fact, I also started my career with tech support. I guess that was
right.
Trend in India, again, graveyard shift, because nobody else could do it.
That's right.
Right. And I got most time, studying. I spent a lot of time studying in that hour of when there's no one around. Right. So that's right.
Yeah.
So you move from tech support to identity to trying new stuff, and then, running a practice. So if you've seen the full cycle of how cybersecurity has evolved, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Now going specifically to cloud security, and again, the audience, this is just to simplify. What is cloud security all about? Why there is so much hype around cloud today? How has it evolved? How have you seen getting it evolved? And why do businesses need to do cloud security? Okay. Yeah. I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but just...
No, they're all related. So it's a great question. So for context, I'm going to assume a lot of people have not done much IT, but for people who would have been there in the beginning, like Prashant and I, when people used to build applications, like I think probably I'm just going to use the example of Facebook.com. The first version that Mark Zuckerberg would have made was on his laptop, because that's what you do. You build your application on a laptop first because it works, and then you start sharing it over a small network. Now, as easy as it sounds by doing, I can, but you can't build a company on it. You can have like a small little house working on Facebook.com, but how do you take it to the level where anyone, anywhere can access it? So for that, people usually use something called data centers, where I just go to Mr. or Miss Data Center. They own a lot of servers, and I tell them, hey, I want 20,000 servers because I have this need for so much more power for my server that I can't do it with my laptop. And I need to provide that service to people around the world. So this would be not just data center, which is close to your house, but close to other countries as well. So you can go there and buy more data centers. That used to be the thing for a long time, like probably say 10 years or so. And one of the limitations with that service was because there's so many more people trying to build their own version of Facebook.com, there were not enough servers available. So you had to order the server, wait for the server to come in like 6 months or 1 year. And once it comes in, someone from IT would set it up for you. And then once they set it up for you, they're like, okay, now I'm ready. But then they'll find, I don't have enough memory. I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to go back and come request for another memory before I can do anything. So we're talking like months being wasted just to get some hardware for you to even create the first version of Facebook.com. But what happened when cloud came in, which is Amazon, I think it was 2013, 2012, they basically came up with the idea that, hey, we were finding this process to be really slow. So they built their own data center and they started giving out their services as, hey, we found this to be a quicker way to deploy servers, deploy applications. You should consider it. And basically at that point in time, people started realizing, hey, wait, I don't have to wait for months to upgrade my RAM or upgrade my memory or go for a new server. I get that in a matter of a few minutes. And that's kind of what was the turning point for a lot of people to get, at least the early adopters, to see the power cloud has in terms of making a business go from zero to like running a global scale business in a matter of a few minutes if they want you to, and they were okay to spend the money for it as well. And that was kind of like the turning point and why cloud became popular for a lot of businesses. Now, talking about cloud security specifically, the reason I guess cloud security became popular was cloud itself was becoming a thing. And as much as people are talking about ChatGPT right now, believe it or not, 2013, 2014 cloud was that topic that people were talking about, like, oh, I want to be in the cloud. There were not enough certifications in cloud. Like right now, people talk about certifications now and then, but there were no certifications. You just basically do what you do with Facebook. You log in, you start using the service. There is no certification to be a Facebook expert, but you kind of, find your way around it. And that's what a lot of people were doing in the beginning for cloud. And as they started doing it, they realized, wait, now it's not just basically Mark Zuckerberg who's building Facebook, but we have all these big enterprises. Like I think if you use the example of companies in India, like Reliance and Tata, can't think of any more. Oh, Flipkart is another example. But imagine all those companies are building themselves in cloud. And what would that mean for us from a security perspective? Like imagine customers want you to put their data in. Like, why would I put my driving license, first name, last name, passport into a website that I don't trust? So that's when people started realizing we need to think about security as well. So, I mean, I won't say cloud security was a word. Like when I started the podcast, no, cloud security was very loosely defined because people would just say, isn't that just like doing security? We already do that. Why would you want to call it a separate thing on its own?
Yeah.
But at least the way we believed it was required because not many people would emphasize on it. The same way, there would be another term that you would hear quite a bit in the cybersecurity world, which is called DevSecOps, which is another thing people talk about, that why do you need to call security? Man, we are all DevOps anyways. We should be doing security. I'm like, yes, we should be doing security. We should be doing the right thing, but it's always required to remember that you need to do the right thing. I'll spin this with another example. For people who learn IT or tech in universities these days, or even back in the day, imagine the first program you would have written. You would have written the Hello World program, which is basically HTML and type and text Hello World.
Yes.
And next thing they ask you is like, okay, now let's just write Hello Prakash. All right, sweet. Hello Prakash. Now let's change the name Prakash to an input field where I can give it any input and it would just print it. If I say Ashish in their input, it would say Ashish. But that's pretty much where they would go. Now, once they've done that, they would never talk about, hey, how do I sanitize input? So if in case Ashish was being malicious, how should I like frame it in a way that I'm not keeping myself exposed to a secret injection or something else? That's never taught. You just basically taught, oh, great. Now this is lesson 1 over. Let's go to lesson 2. Let's build a bigger application. So the fact that security has never been even considered a part of regular education, that's one of the reasons why people need to kind of keep emphasizing, okay, security needs to be called out specifically so you understand from I guess, going back to the protection perspective, you're protecting the business from hackers or malicious actors who can potentially damage the reputation of the company or walk away with the data. B, also for the customers of the company that you're working with, how would they trust the company if they know that it's not secure? Like, for example, if you ever find out that, I don't know, ICICI Bank got hacked, not that they did, but I'm just making an example. Would you ever bank with them? You would think twice.
Yes.
So like, it's that kind of mentality that that needs to be, I guess, is the reason why people think about security. And cloud security basically is if you're building an application in cloud and which is using cloud as an infrastructure to build the application, your next Facebook.com, if it's being built on cloud, what would you do to protect that from hackers and I guess and build the trust at the same time? I think that's what cloud security would be.
Oh,
long-winded answer, but hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, it's amazing the way you have summarized it. It's very easy for most people to understand. Of course, there'll be people who would not get some part of it because they're not from IT, but anybody who's in IT can get it. Now, I believe all colleges should have AppSec and cloud and part of their curriculum today. I don't know if there is. I don't know if any kids in my family or in my circle who are doing that. I literally have to push them to get into cyber.
Yeah, wow, there you go. I think at least overseas they have started for sure. I think I know a few universities. I know University of Texas and some universities in Australia as well. They have started vocational courses. Like I said, it's not like a full-on degree, but it's like an extra course that you can do, which is like a 6-month course or something. Yeah. I know for people definitely have started doing it. Universities started doing it. So hopefully it comes through to India.
Similarly in India, but I think with the way in last 3 years, the technology adoption has grown as more people are using more apps. People have hundreds of apps on their phone, right? They don't want to you order food on Zomato or Swiggy or whatever, right? There's an app for 10-minute grocery delivery, etc., right?
Yeah.
As tech gets adopted, cybersecurity should also get adopted, right? And that's my thought. Now, isn't cloud security similar to application security? Are they related? What's your view on that?
I think I would say the right way to explain it is it would be, is probably the right word. No, it's not at the moment, but it would be. So, and I think I'm going to quote someone, I can't remember the person's name, but they thought they explained it quite well. As more people, like if I go back to the example of people moving to the cloud because they don't have to wait for servers, as more people start moving into it, what people started also doing was they started building digital transformation was a project that came out of it as well, which is kind of like the movement of, hey, how do I change something which is paper based at the moment? I don't know, like going to a bank and printing your passbook or whatever.
Yeah.
How do I change that into internet banking? That's probably the easiest way to explain it. That's what digital transformation is. And as part of doing that, you realize that, okay, I mean, I have to consider the fact that I have an application that I'm building. So application security, which is a lot of people talk about the fact that, hey, is my code safe? Is it okay for me to use, I guess every code would have something called a library, and library is what enables, like for a simple example of a library is that if you're writing a code or a program that adds to a number, now the thing that adds the two numbers is a library. And sometimes that library is basically downloaded free from the internet. And if it is downloaded free from the internet, it may also be a library which has been created by a hacker. So they might have a backdoor.
Yes.
But 9 or 10 times are usually a good one. So like things like that become more application security, where there's more conversation around the fact that, hey, how do I save my Facebook.com from malicious hackers? Cloud security as it stands at the moment is more around the servers on which this is being built on. Now, as long as you have servers, you have infrastructure, and infrastructure security is kind of what cloud security has become. So you'll find that a lot of people transition from being a sysadmin, network security person, or IAM people like you and I and others who are transitioning over to cloud security, because that's something we understand. That's something we've done before. But most people who come from a coding and development background, they go straight to application security. Now, the reason I say not at the moment, but they will, is because what you would find is that the abstraction for infrastructure security is going on at the moment, where a lot of people are pushing the path that, hey, why do I need to have a server when I can have a container? Hey, why do I have a container when I can have a serverless? And I would definitely encourage people to look up what these things are. But for simplicity, as you move the needle from going from a server to a container to a serverless module, what you're thinking about that is like on one end, you're managing a full server that you request from a data center. And on the other, Amazon is taking care of the server for you. All you have to do is you put your application into this little program that Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud gives you. And that's kind of like the serverless. So you don't even have to think about cloud security from that perspective, because it is the responsibility of Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud to take care of that for them. That's kind of where it comes from. So hopefully that kind of answers, like, it would happen, but it hasn't happened yet. I guess there haven't been enough people on serverless or enough people giving the responsibility over to the cloud provider that we can say it should be the same thing today.
So I think another way to look at it, this would be securing the build time and the runtime of the application. So cloud is where the runtime of application is secured, and app is, or build is where the app is part. But I think eventually they will merge someday.
Yeah. Now, in the future, hopefully we're still alive for that.
Yeah. Now, this is the results season in India. This is 10th and 12th.
All right.
Right. So good old days.
Yep.
So luckily my son is still not in 10th, so no stress this year. But
that's good. Board exams are always stressful, man.
Always, right? So yeah, going back to the kids who are going to pass out the 12th class. I know people, every school has a Python or a JavaScript course now in their areas. They're doing basic stuff. Some of the kids, they're always outliers and they would go ahead and write their own apps. But cybersecurity is an afterthought. Now, what's your recommendation for such kids who are trying to build these programs, whether they're in schools or they're trying to finish their college? How would you guide them to take up cloud security and app security as a career, and why should they do it? I mean, there are hundreds of things, right?
Yeah.
If they are interested in tech, why cloud sec or why app sec?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'll probably split that into two parts. Like, it depends on the kind of person you are as well. Like, for example, I was in I would say I was doing pen testing for one hot minute and I left because I just could not deal with reading manuals. And I'm sure it's much more different now doing pen testing compared to what I was doing it. But the reason I don't like, I would say that if you kind of are a person who enjoys programming, who enjoys code, right now it's a great time for you to be application security person, because you coming from a development background, it's an easier transition to do application security, because you can talk about things like your, hey, why is a particular code wrong and how should they have done it in the first place? Whereas I myself, I'm limited by the knowledge of that. Like, I'm not a great programmer, but I'm just good enough that I can write a script that I can run. I can create hundreds of machines in one go, but I'm not that good that I can check hundreds of lines of code and know which one's wrong and why is it wrong, kind of a thing. So I would say, depending on the kind of interest you have, if you find yourself more leaning towards, say, networking, as well as understanding the foundations of identity access management, more on the side of building the infrastructure for application, you'll find yourself an easy transition into the cloud security space and infrastructure security space, network security space, the whole firewall and endpoint security and all of that, vulnerability management, all of that comes in. Pretty big field. On the right-hand side of it, which is the application security side, where you find a lot of people who do pen testing, which is basically testing or trying to hack into the application just to see if you can break the application somehow. That is usually where you find more code first kind of folks are. I mean, now it's a mix, but at least traditionally that's where they have gone. Because what you find is as an application security person, you're talking to a lot more developers and trying to understand their pain point to work with them. So I would say, depending on where your interest lies, definitely pick the field you want to go to. If you enjoy like Java development or JavaScript or whatever, you should definitely consider going on the path of application security. But maybe even start as a developer first and then transition over to application security, so you know what's involved. Like, a lot of us would have started, like, I think both Prashant and I started in tech support. That gave us an insight into technology and what networking could look like. And it was easier transition for us to go from that onto the networking side of things for security. Maybe not as easy transition to go into Java unless you're already knowing Java. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. But I'm looking forward to a double click here, which is there a content or a video on our channel where a kid can go and run a playlist and say, hey, I need to do 10 things, like do a public cloud cert, right? Learn that application. And this could be for anyone, not just a kid, but anyone. Let's say I'm in infra security. I see cloud as the future. More apps getting on cloud. I want to transition my career, right? So how would you guide such people to where to start? What's the first step?
Yeah, I think so depending on where you are, I'll probably cover all spectrums, I guess. If you're starting today and you've never done IT before, I think the first thing I would ask you to do is not look at cloud. I will start by doing the fundamentals of networking, identity. Like, there are 6 or 7 domains that people talk about from a fundamental perspective. I think you can find all these network security plus and security plus kind of courses.
Security plus, yes.
Yeah, CompTIA security. But those would help you build the foundational knowledge for, hey, this is what networking is. This is what identity access management is. The reason why I say those things before doing cloud is because what you would find is cloud assumes that you already know these things. If you're trying to learn cloud, it's almost like you're going in and you're like, oh, VPC. For a person who understands networking, they'll understand what VPC is and how two computers talk to each other. But for someone who has never done this, they're like, well, I guess VPC. I remember the name VPC. I remember the name EC2. And I think they thought they talk to each other. But the context of how they talk to each other, why they talk to each other, that's the whole networking aspect. Like, you don't have to be like super deep diving into it. But what I found, at least based on the conversations that I've had, like, I personally have not sat the CompTIA one, so I'll just call it out. But a lot of people that I've spoken to, they have sat the CompTIA Network Plus, Security Plus. They found that was good from a foundational perspective to understand the basics of, hey, what's networking? What does that look like for me to connect two computers together? I think people like Prashant and I were fortunate enough that we were basically working our way around it. As kids, we were learning together to play games and figuring out, hey, how do I build a LAN? And before LAN was a thing, So I think it's definitely interesting that now that information is kind of lost in the ether in a way, because when people buy computers, like, it's cheaper to buy a whole computer instead of trying to build one. So you get everything hooked in already, and you're basically looking for the Wi-Fi password. You're not trying to connect a LAN cable. So there is no concept of like, I need to connect a LAN cable, that's why I build a network. More like, I think everyone is like, oh, what's the Wi-Fi password here? That says that no one's asking where's my LAN cable, right? So
Ashish,
I think
sorry to interrupt, but you reminded me of a thing from my college days. Shout out to my good old friend Chetan. So we had a 100-meter cable between our homes, plugged into our computers, playing a tournament in a LAN. Right?
But that's the thing though. We've come from the era where it's like we had to deal with physical cables, but now there's no physical cable. But just to close that thought, then I guess the way I see it, it's from an education perspective. If you start there and then you transition onto the cloud space, that's probably easier. You would find that there are a lot of real life projects that you can do. So if you're thinking that, hey, I might do a certification, that will get me a job, that won't get you a job. I think the thing that would be doing real life projects. And what you would find a lot of people have started doing is they have started documenting what they're doing as a project. I have a lot of people in my feed, for lack of a better word, who are, say, building a super simple use case for AWS or Azure, Google Cloud. They'll write a Medium article for it and they'll post it on LinkedIn. Hey, LinkedIn, I made this. I learned how to build, an application from scratch. I learned how to connect two servers from scratch. You're building, as you're connecting with people, you're connected with people like Prashant and I, and you're building your almost your resume. Hey, this is why I know what I'm talking about. And that's kind of where you find, I guess that's the new way of doing building your CV these days. You build it in public. You're not waiting for one fine day when you graduate your school, because everyone has access to the internet now. And this does not, you're not literally, I guess you're not doing live streams. So content is either a article somewhere that you just need to read, or it's a course somewhere. There are a lot of online courses that help you do certification. But I think, so we've done a free bootcamp on our YouTube channel as well for cloud security. We tied that up with another cloud bootcamp that was running, again, for free, but YouTube is filled with it as well. You can use the one on Cloud Security Podcast as a way to go forward. Or, we do paid bootcamps as well, but that's different because I feel like most of the initial knowledge should be free. So we've got that information available for them to kind of go. But when you talk about complex scenarios, it's like, oh, well, okay, now we go into consulting. We're not really doing a little, hey, I want to connect two servers. I want to do a lot more than that. So that's when the other bootcamp with more real life projects as well, otherwise consulting comes in. But yeah, man, I think there's plenty of free knowledge available for it. But there is no curated knowledge. That's the right word for it.
No, I absolutely agree. But just to summarize what I've understood, for beginners who are not from IT, start with basics of IT, get into cloud, because cloud builds on that knowledge. From cloud, you start building projects, and in projects start doing simple things on cyber, very simple things like input validation, and then you move on to complex stuff like OWASP, etc. Right? That's how you build foundational knowledge. So fun fact, another one. I had good knowledge of cloud because I've been in cyber for 20 years now, right? But real cloud security started for me in last 2 years, ever since I joined Palo Alto, right?
Right.
Because there's so much focus on cloud, how products are getting delivered as a service, and then having a CNAP platform as part of it. So I started comparing cloud native, and this is for people who don't come with that background. So, a lot of people are from SOC background who will be watching this content. There are people from infra security background. Learn with cloud, pick up any public cloud, learn about cloud native security tools, followed by any third party. I think that's a good way to.
Probably should explain what do you mean by cloud native security as well, because that's a whole different thing as well. You should probably explain
that. Cloud native. So go. So anything that comes as part of a service. But I've done some stuff on my channel and podcast for covering all those concepts and how it relates to DevOps and CNAP. So I'll leave those as a part of the description. Now,
Yeah.
Ashish, I know you've been interacting with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? You've been at RSA, you are attending tons of conferences on cloud security, like KubeCon. I guess you were there a few weeks back in Amsterdam. What trends are you seeing? What's changing, right?
I would definitely say, I mean, funny enough, in spite of me talking about cloud for so many years, cloud is still a number one topic for a lot of people. I think we did an analysis for how many people had cloud offering. I think out of the 500 people who were at the Expo Center for showcasing their product at RSA, I think about 200 plus were talking about cloud security. And this is like from 160 back in last year. So it's already for like, I don't know how many more got added. And the other one was AI security. AI security was definitely like generative AI was everyone's top of mind, because at least if you talk to the people who are really deep into this, the change is going to happen really quickly. And before you know it, after OpenAI got popular, AWS released their AI service, Azure released their AI service.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this is going to happen really quickly. So the two things that people are looking at, like, I mean, I guess it's I would probably say this way. Depends on what you are looking to do at this point in your career. If you're trying to be the person who just wants to absorb knowledge and be the voice of a certain topic, then yeah, you should look into cloud security and AI security and deep dive into it. But if you're trying to get a job, I would definitely just focus on one, which is just use cloud or cloud security as an example. Just focus down that path so you can get a job. And then you can build on the path of, I guess, making a name for yourself for a personal brand, if you want to use that word, and go down that path. Because I think it's easy for us to look at the internet and look at the trend and go, oh, I want to do that. But the problem with trend is it's still upcoming. It's not there right now.
Yeah.
So if you want a job right now, it's not going to help you. But it's like, it's great to know that where the world is going, and you should have that at the back of your mind. But it's not great when you're trying to look for a job. You're like, oh, I want to do AI security. But how many companies out there can actually build an AI model? How many companies out there are who can even think about what security for AI security is beyond the data? Like, I think, what does that even mean? We haven't even had real life use cases beyond Chat GPT yet in the market for what this could look like. Like, it's only the big players like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and AWS. Like, they're all talking about AI, generative AI, and hey, you use language model. But how many jobs technically are there for like a language model? I haven't seen one, unless you like, I think so. Great, but do I want a job right now? I probably should look for a job in cloud then, not think about AI security right now.
Yeah, I think there are more open source models on LLM models right now compared to
yeah. So, but where do you stop with that as well? And because you can go down a rabbit hole, next thing you know that 6 months have passed, which you could have just used to find a job as well. So it depends on where you are in your career. I definitely feel that there's a lot that can happen at any given point in time. Like, I mean, even just to give the depth of how, or at least the breadth of how wide the field is, like, I mentioned earlier, I had worked in the oil and gas, oil and petroleum, or like that industry, banking industry, financial industry, fintech industry. Like, there are industries which are just dedicated for IoT as well.
Yeah.
So depending on which industry you're in, you could be seeing a completely different trend. I mean, what I've called out is the generalized trend across tech, where it's like cloud and generative AI. But I'm sure there's something really revolutionary happening in the health space industry or IoT industry that I would not know of. So I always have to caveat my answer with that, hey, this is just the general tech trend. I don't know what's going on in the health industry or whatever the other industry is, which is from a tech perspective. I'm sure they're doing amazing things.
Yeah, but I think what excites me about this generative AI concept is the use of NLP, right? So I don't have to learn programming. I have to be good at writing prompts, right?
Yeah.
I think that will make it very easy for people to get into tech, query tools, get accustomed to tools. So instead of writing a threat hunting query or a query on AWS, hey, find me machines that are generating this kind of alert in CloudTrail from 1,000 servers. Hey, I can simply put it in a prompt, right? And
yeah,
right?
I think the most interesting part is going to be things that you and I spoke about for so long about identity access management, network security, all of that would disappear. like think about it from a simple perspective, right? If I just wanted to connect two boxes in AWS, and I did a whole YouTube video on this as well. ChatGPT would give you the CloudFormation template, which is the template you can upload straight away into AWS, and you can get two servers connected to each other in a VPC. And I don't even know what networking is.
Absolutely. No, I agree. There's a good and bad side of it, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing to not know what what networking is, in that if that became the future. Because, like, for example, I don't know how a kernel works because I never had to.
Yep.
So all of us in our lifetime had things that were completely abstracted, but the generation before was like, oh, working with the kernel is the most important thing possible. You should need to know kernel inside out. Like, but I have never technically worked with the kernel except for when I was doing pen testing. I have never worked with the kernel.
No, I absolutely agree on that part. Now, from all the hardcore tech that we've been talking about,
Yeah.
I this would be the last part I want to take your time on is, what do you do beyond cloud security? What are your areas of interest? Books, anything?
Well, eating food, I'm definitely would say I'm a big foodie. I think before we started recording, I was talking about the whole. I ended up going to the oldest Indian restaurant in London called Veeraswamy. It's like opened up in 1920 or 1930s. So food is like a big part of my life. I think definitely food, and I want to say travel, but I think these days, because of the podcast, travel has become more of a work thing. So I'm trying to figure out where the balance would be, where travel is more for my own personal reasons rather than work reasons, if that makes sense. Like when you go to San Francisco or Amsterdam, it was a great thing for me to, when I went there first time, I had all the food, but next time I'm going for work. I go in Monday, leave on Friday. It's almost like a mercenary. There's no enjoyment to it. So I think I'll probably bring that back. But outside of it, I think one of the goals that I have is to have so there's a lot of, I've been passionate about boxing for some time. I don't know why, but as an adult, as my wife would call it, midlife crisis. I've got a midlife crisis of becoming I won't say a pro boxer, but I definitely want to have at least a amateur match for boxing. So that at least the more I talk about public, the more she'll be forced to kind of go, okay, fuck, you told like so many times already, you might as well do it. So I'm hoping to at least have my first amateur match so soon, hopefully.
That's amazing. No, I do like boxing. I've got my punching bag, me and my son.
Oh, nice.
Right. So, it's amazing. And people, we are talking for the first time in such a structure. Now I find so many things that are common between Ashish and I. Amazing to know that. Any books that you're reading, Ashish, beyond cyber?
So there was a book that someone gifted me called Sapiens. I think the idea was, and by the way, I'm not a huge, massive book reader, but a friend of mine gifted it to me because I was telling her that I am quite fascinated by human psychology and economics, and I think things that I did not care about when I was growing up. Now I'm curious about. Oh, I wonder how the world economy works. Oh, I wonder why I liked something whereas my friends did not like something. What's the psychology behind? Like for me, it's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing possible, cloud and blah, blah, blah. But for them, even though they look at cloud every day, but they're not cloud. Why do I care about it? And then they move on okay, what can I do or say to highlight that why I am excited by it and maybe get their perspective on that human psychology part. I definitely get fascinated by that. So anyway, she said, go for Sapiens. And it's been fascinating to hear, or at least to read, what that has been. I guess the experience of why we survived out of all the other species of humans that existed, and how once you start seeing it, you start seeing why is it that we work in a certain way? Why our organizations have certain teams or certain sizes? At what point do you know that either the organization would completely fail or the company would thrive into becoming the next layer? So I'm not going to go into detail about it, but Sapiens is a good book.
I'll call it midlife crisis again because I've been having the same thing. I'm reading something called a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He's an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah,
amazing book. I heard the audible version and then I got the physical copy, and and then bunch of similar stuff. psychology.
Yeah, I think he's
How money
definitely someone I
moves.
follow as well, man. Yeah, I guess it's one of those ones where you start following him at a certain point in your life where you're almost looking for a bigger purpose, I guess, for like, but not that he's a guru or something, but
Yeah.
he's gone through that thought process before any of us.
Yes.
And he's just been nice enough to document it in a book and a podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you hear it, like, oh, this is kind of what my thought process is. This person has put it into words.
Mm-hmm. And my last question is, and I've been asking this for some time, because this was the first major event. RSA was the first major cybersecurity event after COVID, right? So
yeah,
a lot of people flew in compared to last year. But how was COVID for you? Was it good? Bad?
It was. I would say, okay, because I think Melbourne, Australia had probably the longest lockdown for during the COVID period.
Mm-hmm.
But the silver lining of this was because I started my podcast during COVID. Basically, the day or the week that we were made to be house lockdown, for lack of a better word, we were told we could not go beyond 5 kilometers from our house, and that was the case until like for 4 months or 5 months. You could only leave once and go out only for an hour, but you'd come back and whatever. But that's kind of where at that point was the COVID going, and this is my coping mechanism as well, talking to friends online, kind of like yourself, doing this. But this became the podcast for me back then, and I think maybe this would go down the same path as well, where it becomes like a full-fledged thing. Yeah. But what we're doing right now is kind of what I started, doing Zoom calls with people and going, hey, how about we record this, and then how about we put the recording as a podcast, and just took it from there, man.
Yes, I think something similar. I tried cooking. Didn't work out, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I tried cooking as well. I feel like it definitely it gave me a few staple dishes that I started making, but it was definitely not that I could become a full-fledged cook though. I know how to make a French toast now.
Oh,
but look at this way, right? Yeah, but French toast is not a thing outside of India. Like no French person knows French toast, and you tell them what the hell is a French toast? I'm like,
same goes with Maggie, right?
Yeah.
Maggie and chai. Thank you so much, Ashish. Yeah, it was amazing to have you here.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
And I'll hope we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, as long as there's cloud security podcast would be there as well. So people would find us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.